The stars stretched endlessly around Captain Daniel Carter's ship, the Ironclad. It was supposed to be a routine journey, just another trip through the uncharted sectors of space. But then, his ship's AI, Vega, picked up something unusual. "Captain, I have detected a distress signal. Source unknown." Daniel frowned, leaning forward in his pilot's chair. "Location: 3,000 kilometers ahead. Signal is weak. It might be an escape pod." An escape pod. Out here. That meant someone was in trouble. "Set course," Daniel ordered. "Let's check it out." Vega hesitated. "Captain, this could be a trap." Daniel grinned. "Yeah, it could. But what if it's not?" Minutes later, the Ironclad reached the signal source. A small oval-shaped pod floated in the darkness. Its outer hull was scorched, and the emergency beacon blinked weakly. Daniel activated the ship's tractor beam, pulling the pod into the cargo bay. He rushed down, pulse pistol in hand, ready for anything. As the pod's door hissed open, he expected a wounded soldier or a desperate refugee. Instead, he saw her. A woman, tall, elegant, and unlike any human he had ever seen. Her skin shimmered with a faint golden hue, and her silver-white hair flowed over her shoulders. A torn, regal-looking outfit clung to her slender frame. Her breathing was shallow, and there was a nasty burn on her arm. She was an alien. But more than that, she looked important. Daniel knelt beside her, scanning for wounds. Her eyes fluttered open, revealing irises of deep violet. When she saw him, she tensed. "Easy," he said, raising his hands. "You're safe now." Her gaze was sharp, filled with both fear and strength. She tried to sit up but winced in pain. "You are human?" she asked, her voice melodic, but weak. Daniel nodded. "Yeah. Name's Daniel Carter. And you are?" She hesitated before answering. "Xalvanna, Princess of the Azari Dominion." A princess. That explained the expensive-looking clothes. But why was she alone in an escape pod? Before he could ask, Vega's voice interrupted. "Captain, hostile ships detected. They are approaching fast." Daniel cursed. He had walked straight into a war zone. Xalvanna's expression darkened. "They found me." "Who?" Daniel asked, already sprinting to the cockpit. "The warlord Vorkal," she said. "He wants me dead." Great. Now Daniel was stuck in a fight he never asked for. But as enemy ships closed in, something inside him refused to abandon her. He had saved her. And that meant he wasn't going to let anyone take her now. Gripping the controls, he prepared for battle. "Hold on, Princess. We're not going down without a fight." Daniel's hands moved fast over the controls of the Ironclad. The ship's sensors showed 3 enemy fighters closing in. Their sleek, black hulls reflected the dim light of space, and their weapons were already locking on. Xalvanna stood behind him, gripping the co-pilot's chair. She was still weak, but fear and urgency filled her voice. "We must run. If they capture me, they will execute me." Daniel smirked, eyes locked on the enemy ships. "Run. Princess, that's not my style." He yanked the controls, sending the Ironclad into a sharp dive. Plasma bolts from the enemy fighters streaked past, missing by inches. The ship's shields flared as a few shots struck home, but Daniel wasn't worried yet. "Vega, give me targeting solutions." "Locking missiles now, Captain." The ship's missile bays hummed, and 2 projectiles shot forward, twisting through space before slamming into the nearest enemy fighter. The explosion lit up the dark void. Xalvanna's eyes widened. "You are a warrior." Daniel chuckled, more like a guy who hates being chased. The remaining fighters circled around, firing again. The Ironclad shook under the impact, alarms blaring. Daniel gritted his teeth. He needed to end this fast. "Vega, deploy countermeasures." Bright flares shot out from the Ironclad, confusing the enemy's targeting systems. Daniel spun the ship, looping behind one of the fighters. With a quick pull of the trigger, His railguns fired, tearing through the enemy's engines. The ship exploded into debris. Only one fighter remained, but instead of attacking, it suddenly broke off and sped away. Zalvanna gasped. "They are calling for reinforcements." Daniel frowned. "Then we better disappear before they come back." He pushed the thrusters to full power, sending the ironclad rocketing into hyperspace. The streaking blue lights of faster-than-light travel filled the cockpit, and for the first time in the last few minutes, the tension eased. Zalvanna sank into the co-pilot's chair, exhaling deeply. "You saved me again," she said softly. "Why?" Daniel leaned back, rubbing the back of his neck. "That's just what humans do. We don't leave people to die." She studied him with curious eyes. "Humans, I have heard stories about your kind. Many say you are reckless, unpredictable. Some even say you are dangerous." Daniel smirked. "They're not wrong." For a moment, silence filled the cockpit. Then, Zalvanna's expression turned serious. "My people are in danger, Captain Carter. Warlord Vorkal has already taken control of many of our worlds. If he captures me, the last true heir, he will declare himself emperor." Daniel crossed his arms. "And let me guess, you want my help." She hesitated. "You have already risked your life for me. I cannot ask more of you." Daniel sighed. He knew he should just drop her off somewhere safe and move on. But something inside him wouldn't let him walk away. "Princess," he said finally, "looks like you just hired yourself a human." To be continued. Daniel sat in the captain's chair, arms crossed, watching the hyperspace tunnel swirl outside the viewport. His mind was racing. A few hours ago, he was just another independent starship captain, taking odd jobs and staying out of trouble. Now he had an alien princess on his ship and a warlord hunting them across the stars. Life had a funny way of getting complicated. Zalvanna sat in the co-pilot's chair, looking tense. Though she tried to hide it, Daniel could tell she was worried. Her hands were clenched, and her silver-white hair was slightly messy from all the chaos. "You okay?" Daniel asked. She nodded but didn't look at him. "I should not be here. I should be fighting for my people." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "You were floating in an escape pod, princess, not exactly leading an army." She flinched slightly, then sighed. "I was betrayed. Vorkal's forces attacked our royal fleet. Many of my guards died protecting me. In the end, I had no choice but to flee." Daniel leaned forward. "So this warlord, Vorkal, what's his deal? Power-hungry tyrant?" Zalvanna's violet eyes darkened. "He was once a general of the Azeri Dominion, but he sought absolute rule. He believes strength is the only thing that matters. He sees mercy as weakness, and he plans to rule through fear." Daniel shook his head. "Sounds like a real piece of work." Before Zalvanna could respond, the ship's AI, Vega, interrupted. "Captain, long-range scanners detect incoming ships. Multiple signatures. They are tracking us." Zalvanna's face tensed. "Vorkal's forces, they won't stop until I'm dead." Daniel cursed under his breath. They were still in hyperspace, but their enemies were tracking them somehow. "Vega, how long until we reach safe space?" "We are en route to Outpost Haven, a Terran-controlled station. Arrival in 10 minutes. However, the enemy ships will exit hyperspace shortly after us." Daniel drummed his fingers against the console. If these guys caught up, they wouldn't just try to kill Zalvanna. They'd probably blow up his ship too. "All right, new plan," Daniel said. "We don't wait around to fight. The moment we drop out of hyperspace, we head straight for the outpost." Zalvanna frowned. "What if they attack the station?" Daniel smirked. "They won't. That's Terran territory. And trust me, no one is dumb enough to pick a fight with humans in their own backyard." The ship's warning lights flashed, signaling their exit from hyperspace. Dropping out in 3, 2, 1. The swirling tunnel of hyperspace vanished, replaced by the sight of Outpost Haven, a massive space station floating above a red gas giant. Smaller ships buzzed around it like fireflies. But behind them, space rippled. The enemy was coming. Daniel gripped the controls. Let's see if we can outrun a warlord. To be continued. The ironclad dropped out of hyperspace, its engines burning hot as it sped toward Outpost Haven. The massive Terran station loomed ahead, its metallic surface covered in docking bays, gun turrets, and glowing lights. It was a fortress in space, built to withstand attacks from pirates, warlords, and anyone foolish enough to challenge humanity. But Daniel wasn't thinking about that. He was watching the scanners. "Captain," Vega warned, "enemy ships are exiting hyperspace behind us." Kazalvana gripped the edge of her seat as space twisted and ripped open. 3 warships appeared, sleek, dark, and deadly. They were larger than the ironclad, armed to the teeth with plasma cannons and missile bays. Daniel cursed. "They really don't give up, huh?" Zalvana's voice was tense. "Vorkal's hunters. They will not stop until I am dead." Daniel smirked. "Let's make their job a little harder." He pushed the thrusters to full power, racing toward the outpost. The enemy ships locked on, their weapons charging. Warning sirens blared in the cockpit. Then a new voice crackled over the comms. "Unidentified vessel. This is Outpost Haven. State your business." Daniel grabbed the radio. "This is Captain Daniel Carter of the Ironclad. We're carrying a VIP under pursuit from hostile forces, requesting immediate docking clearance." A pause. Then the response. "Understood, Captain. You are cleared for docking Bay 12. And welcome home." Daniel grinned. "Knew I could count on you guys." But before he could celebrate, the enemy ships fired. Plasma bolts shot across space, barely missing the ironclad. The ship shook as a few stray shots clipped the shields. Zalvana gasped. "They're getting closer." Daniel's jaw tightened. Not for long. As they neared the outpost, the station's defense systems activated. Massive railguns rotated toward the enemy ships. Missile silos opened. A deep mechanical voice echoed through the station's external speakers. "Warning. You are entering Terran space. Stand down or be destroyed." The enemy warships hesitated. Then Outpost Haven fired. Blinding streaks of energy and metal cut through space. The nearest enemy ship took a direct hit, its hull exploding into fiery debris. The remaining 2 ships panicked, breaking formation. Daniel whooped. "That's what I'm talking about." The ironclad sped into the docking bay, skidding to a smooth stop. The doors sealed behind them, cutting them off from the battle outside. For the first time since their escape, they were safe. Kazalvana exhaled deeply, her shoulders relaxing. "Your people, they are powerful." Daniel chuckled, unbuckling his seatbelt. "Yeah, and we don't take kindly to bullies." He stood up and offered his hand. "Come on, Princess. Let's go meet some friends." Kazalvana hesitated, then took his hand. As they stepped off the ship, she realized something. This human wasn't just her rescuer. He might just be her best chance at reclaiming her throne. As Daniel and Kazalvana stepped onto the docking platform, the scent of oil and metal filled the air. Outpost Haven was a rough place, built by Terrans for Terrans. The walls were reinforced steel, the floors covered in old battle scars, and the people, tough, hardened by space, and ready for a fight at any moment. A squad of Terran soldiers approached, rifles slung over their shoulders. Leading them was Commander Briggs, a grizzled veteran with a cybernetic eye and a permanent scowl. He stopped in front of Daniel, arms crossed. "Carter," Briggs grunted, "what kind of trouble have you brought us this time?" Daniel grinned. "Oh, just a princess on the run from a galactic warlord." Briggs's cybernetic eye scanned Kazalvana, and for a moment, his scowl deepened. Then, surprisingly, he chuckled. "Only you, Carter. Come on, let's talk somewhere private." The group moved through the outpost, past engineers repairing ships and mercenaries drinking at the station's bar. Exalvana kept close to Daniel, her sharp violet eyes scanning the surroundings. This place was unlike any palace or warship she had ever seen. Finally, they entered a secured meeting room. Briggs leaned against the table and got straight to the point. "So tell me, Princess, why the hell is Vorkal hunting you?" Zalvana straightened her posture, her royal presence returning. "General Vorkal has betrayed the Azari Dominion. He killed my family, seized control of my homeworld, and now he seeks my death to claim the throne." Briggs nodded slowly. "And you want us to help?" Daniel cut in. "Look, she's got no army, no ships, and nowhere else to turn. Vorkal's already got a bounty on my head just for helping her. So we're in this, whether we like it or not." Briggs sighed, rubbing his temple. "Damn it, Carter. Always dragging us into your messes." Then he smirked. "But I like pissing off tyrants." He turned to Exalvana. "The Terran Alliance ain't gonna send an army for you, but we've got fighters, smugglers, and captains who hate people like Vorkal. If you want a chance at taking back your throne, you'll need allies, and you're standing in the right place to find them." Exalvana's eyes widened. "You would fight for me?" Briggs shook his head. "No, Princess. We'll fight with you, but you gotta prove you're worth following." Daniel grinned. "Think you're up for it, Princess?" Exalvana looked at the humans around her, their sharp eyes, their battle-worn armor, their fearless attitudes. She had always been told humans were unpredictable, dangerous, even reckless. Now she understood why. And she smiled. "I will prove it," she said, her voice firm. "I will fight." Daniel patted her shoulder. "Now you're talking." The meeting room buzzed with tense energy. Exalvana had made her decision. She would fight. But deciding was one thing. Winning, that was another. Briggs leaned forward, placing a rough hand on the table. "All right, Princess. You want a shot at reclaiming your throne. Then we need to hit Vorkal where it hurts." Daniel crossed his arms. "And where would that be?" Briggs tapped a console, and a hologram of a large space station appeared. "This is Outpost Drakus, one of Vorkal's main supply hubs. Weapons, fuel, troops, it all passes through here. If we take it out, we slow him down." Zalvana studied the map. "But it will be heavily guarded." Briggs smirked. "That's where we come in." Daniel chuckled. "Let me guess. You want me to fly in and cause a distraction while you hit him from behind?" Briggs grinned. "Exactly. Think you can handle it?" Daniel rolled his eyes. "Please, I was born for this." Zalvana looked at them both. "And what is my role in this mission?" Briggs gave her a long look. "That depends. Can you fight?" She met his gaze without hesitation. "I was trained in Azari combat since childhood. I can fight." Briggs nodded. "Then you're coming with me. Let's see what a princess can do in a real battle." Zalvana's expression hardened. She had spent her life being protected, kept behind palace walls, guarded by warriors. Now she would stand beside them, not behind them. Daniel clapped his hands together. "Well then, looks like we've got a plan." Hours later, the ironclad flew through the cold darkness of space, approaching Outpost Drakus. The station was massive, a fortress of metal floating in the void, surrounded by defense turrets and fighter patrols. Inside the ship, Daniel tightened his grip on the controls. "All right, Vega. Let's make some noise." Activating attack protocol, the AI responded. The ironclad shot forward at high speed, its weapons lighting up. Railguns blasted enemy fighters out of the sky. Missiles streaked toward turrets. Explosions bloomed in the darkness. Alarms blared across the station as Vorkal's forces scrambled to respond. Inside a stolen enemy transport, Briggs, Exalvana, and a team of Terran fighters slipped through the chaos. The enemy, distracted by Daniel's attack, didn't notice as they landed inside the station. Briggs turned to Exalvana. "All right, Princess. Time to earn your place in this war. Zalvanna nodded, gripping a plasma rifle. She wasn't a queen yet, but tonight she would fight like one. As the doors hissed open, enemy soldiers turned in shock, just in time for Zalvanna to fire the first shot. The battle had begun. The doors of the enemy outpost burst open, and Zalvanna stepped into the chaos. Plasma bolts whizzed past her as enemy soldiers scrambled for cover. The air was thick with smoke and the sharp scent of burning metal. Briggs crouched behind a crate, barking orders. Move. Secure the control room. Zalvanna didn't hesitate. She raised her plasma rifle and fired. Her first shot struck an enemy in the chest, sending him sprawling. Another rushed toward her, but she spun, using her enhanced reflexes to dodge, before slamming the butt of her rifle into his face. He collapsed, unconscious. Briggs whistled. Not bad, Princess. She didn't reply. She was too focused. Her heart pounded, adrenaline surging through her veins. She had spent years training with swords and blasters in the royal palace. But this was real war. The Terran fighters pushed forward, cutting through enemy lines with brutal efficiency. Zalvanna saw it now. Why so many feared humans? They fought with precision, speed, and fearlessness, using cover, tactics, and teamwork. She gritted her teeth. She wouldn't be left behind. A squad of enemy reinforcements arrived, blocking the path to the control room. One of them, a hulking brute in black armor, raised his weapon. Kill the princess, he roared. Zalvanna acted before he could fire. She dashed forward, ducking under his shot, and slammed a plasma blade into his gut. The brute gasped, eyes wide in shock, before falling. The other enemies hesitated. That was their mistake. Briggs and his men took advantage, cutting them down in seconds. Control room is just ahead, Briggs shouted. Zalvanna wiped sweat from her brow. She had survived the first wave, but the battle wasn't over yet. Meanwhile, outside the station, Daniel was still keeping the enemy busy. The ironclad weaved through incoming fire, dodging enemy fighters and returning shots with deadly accuracy. Vega's voice crackled through the cockpit. Shields at 40%, Captain. Daniel gritted his teeth. Yeah, I know. Just hold together a little longer. His ship spiraled through enemy formations, launching countermeasures and firing railguns. The station's defenses were struggling to keep up. He had made himself the biggest threat in the sky, and it was working. But he couldn't keep this up forever. Briggs, tell me you're almost done down there. Briggs' voice came through the comms. Almost. The princess is a damn natural. Daniel smirked. Told you. But before he could celebrate, Vega gave a warning. New energy signature detected. Large warship incoming. Daniel's stomach dropped. Vorkal had arrived. Inside the station, Zalvanna, and the team reached the control room. But as she hacked into the system, alarms blared again. Briggs checked his scanner. His face darkened. Damn it. Vorkal's flagship just entered the sector. Zalvanna's hands clenched into fists. She had won the battle inside the station, but the real war was about to begin. The control room was filled with flashing lights and the hum of computers. Zalvanna worked quickly, her fingers gliding across the console as she hacked into the station's security systems. The battle inside had been won, but outside, things had just gotten worse. Briggs paced behind her, his expression tense. Come on, Princess. We need to disable the station's defenses before Vorkal's fleet arrives. I'm trying, Zalvanna said, her voice steady but urgent. Their encryption is complex, but Before she could finish, the entire station shook violently. A deep metallic groan echoed through the walls. Zalvanna's breath caught. Briggs tapped his communicator. Carter, what the hell was that? Daniel's voice came through, laced with tension. Bad news. Vorkal's flagship just fired a warning shot. If I had to guess, he's giving us a chance to surrender. Briggs cursed. Like hell, we're surrendering. Zolvana's fingers moved faster. She bypassed the last firewall and gained full control of the station's systems. The security cameras flickered, revealing a terrifying sight. Vorkel's flagship, the Doomfang, looming outside like a monstrous beast. It was 3 times the size of the Ironclad, covered in thick armor and bristling with weapons. The warlord himself appeared on the central monitor. Vorkel's reptilian face twisted into a cruel smile. His deep, rumbling voice filled the room. "Princess Zolvana, you cannot run from me." Zolvana stood tall, refusing to show fear. "I do not run, traitor." Vorkel chuckled darkly. "Brave words. But bravery will not save you. Surrender now, and I may spare your life." Briggs muttered under his breath. "Yeah, right." Zolvana's hands curled into fists. "You will never rule the Azari Dominion." Vorkel's smile vanished. His golden eyes burned with fury. "Then you will die with the humans." The screen went black. Outside, the Doomfang's cannons charged. Briggs slammed his fist on the table. "Damn it. We need an escape plan, now." Zolvana took a deep breath. She had control of the station. She could still turn this around. Her eyes locked onto a section of the screen. The station's automated weapons. A plan formed in her mind. She turned to Briggs. "What if we don't run? What if we fight?" Briggs frowned. "Against that monster, we don't have the firepower." Zolvana smirked. "But they do." She pointed at the screen. "The station's defense systems. If I activate them, we can use their own weapons against them." Briggs blinked, then grinned. "Princess, I like the way you think." She turned back to the console. Her fingers flew across the controls. One by one, the station's massive cannons powered up. Outside, Vorkel's warships closed in for the kill. Then, the outpost's guns roared to life. Fire and steel filled the void of space. The battle had truly begun. The space outside Outpost Drekis erupted into chaos. The station's heavy cannons fired in rapid succession, spewing energy blasts toward Vorkel's fleet. Explosions bloomed in the darkness as enemy ships were caught off guard, their hulls ripped apart by their own stolen firepower. Inside the control room, Zolvana's hands moved quickly over the console, directing the station's weapons toward the biggest threats. Her violet eyes burned with determination. Briggs laughed as he watched an enemy cruiser break apart. "Damn, Princess, remind me never to get on your bad side." Zolvana smirked but didn't take her eyes off the battle. "Just keep your rifle ready, Commander. This is far from over." Above the battlefield, the ironclad twisted and turned through the madness. Daniel gripped the controls tightly, dodging incoming fire while Vega calculated the best attack angles. "Shields at 20%, Captain." Daniel gritted his teeth. "Not great, but we'll manage." A squad of enemy fighters locked onto him, their weapons glowing. Just as they fired, Daniel spun the ship sideways, slipping between their shots. He squeezed the trigger, and the ironclad's railguns tore through them in seconds. The comms crackled. "Carter, we got a bigger problem." Briggs' voice was tense. Daniel glanced at his scanners. His stomach dropped. Vorkel's flagship, the Doomfang, was moving forward, its massive cannons charging with deadly energy. Daniel knew what was coming. "Brace yourselves." A blinding beam of energy erupted from the Doomfang, slamming into the outpost's shields. The entire station shook violently. Alarms blared. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Zolvana gripped the console, struggling to stay on her feet. "Shields are failing." Briggs cursed. "One more hit like that, and we're done." Daniel's mind raced. They needed to take out the Doomfang before it fired again. Then an idea struck him. A crazy, reckless, very human idea. He opened the comms. "Princess, can you overload the station's core?" Zolvana's eyes widened. That would cause an explosion big enough to destroy the station. Daniel smirked. "Exactly. But we won't be here when it happens." Briggs caught on. You want to use the station as a bomb. Daniel nodded. We lure the Doomfang in close, then jump away at the last second. Zalvanna hesitated. This station had been her first victory. Destroying it felt wrong. But then she thought of her people, of her throne, of the war they had to win. She steeled herself. I can do it. Her fingers danced over the controls, setting the station's reactor to overload. Warning sirens screamed as energy levels spiked. Daniel watched as the Doomfang moved closer, unaware of the trap. He gripped the controls. All right. The moment it's in range, we run. Outside, the enemy flagship loomed, ready to crush them all. But Zalvanna, Daniel, and the humans had other plans. The alarms inside Outpost Drakis screamed as the reactor's energy levels spiked. Red warning lights flashed across every screen, signaling the inevitable explosion. The station had become a ticking bomb. Zalvanna wiped sweat from her brow, her hand steady on the console. The reactor is overloading. We have 5 minutes before detonation. Briggs grinned. Plenty of time. Daniel's voice crackled over the comms. All right, everyone, get to the ship. We're getting out of here. Zalvanna nodded and turned to Briggs. Let's move. They sprinted through the station's shaking corridors. Explosions erupted in the distance as systems failed, metal groaning under the immense pressure. Behind them, enemy soldiers tried to regroup, realizing too late that something was wrong. The Doomfang had moved in dangerously close, preparing for another attack, completely unaware of the trap. Inside the ironclad, Daniel kept his hands tight on the controls, watching the enemy flagship draw closer. Vega's voice remained calm. Enemy warship is now within critical range of the reactor explosion. Daniel grinned. Perfect. Now, we just need our people on board. Through the viewport, he spotted Briggs and Zalvanna sprinting toward the docking bay, their team right behind them. The ship's hatch opened, and they leaped inside. We're in, Briggs shouted. Daniel didn't wait. He slammed the throttle forward, and the ironclad shot away from the station at full speed. On the Doomfang, Vorkal finally realized something was wrong. His officers shouted in panic. Commander, the station's energy levels are critical. Vorkal's golden eyes widened in rage. No. Pull back. But it was too late. Outpost Drakis erupted in a massive explosion, a blinding ball of fire and energy swallowing everything in its path. The Doomfang was caught at the center, its mighty shield struggling against the blast. The explosion ripped through its hull, tearing the monstrous warship apart. The great Vorkal, the traitor and usurper, had no time to escape. His flagship disintegrated in the inferno. From a safe distance, the ironclad hovered in space, watching the destruction. Briggs let out a long whistle. Well, that was one hell of a fireworks show. Daniel smirked. Told you it would work. Zalvanna exhaled slowly, her eyes fixed on the wreckage. The man who had stolen her throne was gone. She had won. But she knew the fight wasn't over yet. Briggs turned to her. So, what now, princess? Zalvanna stood tall. Now, we take back my kingdom. A new fire burned in her heart. She had started this journey as a fugitive, saved by a reckless human pilot. Now, she was something more. A warrior. A leader. A queen in the making. Daniel grinned. Well then, Your Highness, let's go win you a crown. The ironclad turned toward the stars, toward the next battle, toward destiny. The war was not over. But tonight, humanity and the lost princess had won.